10 chalk paint mistakes to avoid. I'm proud to announce this episode is brought to you by Redesign with Prima. If you're ready to take your furniture to another level, then Redesign with Prima is there for you. They make so many products like transfers, stencils, decoupage papers, stamps, molds, and much more. I really love the quality of their products, and that's why I partner up with them. Their transfers have the best designs, and I just love that about them. Also, they make the thickest, best quality stencils in the industry, and again, I love designs they have. So make sure to click the link in the description to check out all amazing products they have. As I said, there is so many, from transfers, molds, stamps, gilding waxes, stencils, and so many more. Hello everybody and welcome to the Kacha podcast. Today we are talking all about mistakes. Beginners make way more mistakes. The more you do, the more you learn. But to this day, I just want to say that I still make mistakes. That doesn't change, doesn't go away, because as you are growing and you're learning new things, so you will make mistakes. But here I put 10 mistakes to avoid if you're a beginner. When I was starting 5 years ago, when I was the beginner, I made a bunch of these mistakes that I will be talking today because there was no content as this the one I'm making today on YouTube platform. So I had to go through mistakes, I learned from them, so that's probably the best way to do. But if you just want to avoid a lot of frustration and headaches, you can just try avoiding these 10 things. So number 10, the one I put as a number 10 is repainting someone else's work. Or repainting, painting over existing paint. So that is big one in my book. It's on my list because as I was few months into this journey, I gained confidence, and I had a customer ask me if I would like to repaint her end tables so they can match her coffee table, or I don't know what she had. She wanted it to be matched, I remember that. So she was like, can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I can. Brought those tables and I painted over them, and what happened is that paint cracked, like everything cracked. I ended up working for days trying to fix the mistake I made. There was a bunch of issues why that happened, but the point is that I didn't know what previous person did, and the safest way to go if you are going to repaint someone else's work is to strip. Get rid of all of that, because as I said, you have no idea what that person did. To this day, 5 years later, I do not buy furniture that is painted because I simply don't have time to go through that, and I really try to avoid stripping furniture. It's just so much work, and I just simply learned the hard way to do that. So as I said, 5 years later, I will never take on a piece that has paint on, that I don't know what was used, what products. Actually, I got a little piece of furniture from my friend, and I know what she did, so I was like, okay, I will take that. But that's really rare. Like that is the first one in 5 years that I took that is painted, but that's because it came from my friend, and I know what she did, what she used, what products, and I know how to approach. So if you're going to buy a piece that is already painted, then you have to strip it. The safest way to go is to strip it, and you will save a lot of yourself a lot of headaches. But the best thing probably to do is just don't get that furniture. There is so much furniture that I'm like, no thank you. I have no time and desire to deal with painted furniture. As I said, I went through hell trying to fix the mistakes I made painting those tables. So that is number 10, and Number 9, it's a big one. I learned also the hard way by wasting so much money, buying broken furniture and furniture that smell like smoke, cigarette smoke. So let me tell you something. Broken furniture, when I say broken furniture, missing veneer here and there, that's not a big problem. Even if veneer is missing heavily, you can peel that off if you love to do that. I, again, have no patience for that, and I try to avoid that at all cost. That is just so much time consuming that I just don't have time for that. That is fine, but broken, missing sliders inside the drawers, or heavily broken legs, or construction is bad. Unless you have somebody that is going to fix that for you and that has tools and everything, unless you have a person like that at home, just try to stay away from that. I bought so much furniture like that when I was the beginner, and I ended up donating that furniture back to the Goodwill, so I ended up losing money. I will buy those pieces for $20, $30, but if you think about that, that's just wasted money. I could have saved that money instead of throwing it away. I threw that money away completely because I just didn't know how to fix things. Sometimes the sliders that are made out of wood on these antique pieces, when they're broken, it's so hard to replace them. I didn't have anybody to cut those for me, so I definitely suggest staying away from broken furniture. Smelling, cigarettes smelling furniture, guys, I mean, I will tell you something. Some people say you can get rid of the cigarettes smell. You can use shellac to shellac every inch of it, inside and outside. You can use charcoal, you can use this or that. And I will tell you something. If the piece was inside a smoker home, you are never going to get rid of that smell. You're just going to trap it in there, maybe with shellac, but then again, some people can still pick up on that smell. Some people have sensitive smell and they can smell that. And usually that will be inside the drawers. Like, you will get rid of the smell from outside, but inside you cannot get rid of that completely, 100% to when you open the drawers to say, okay, this doesn't smell. I had pieces where I realized that they smell like cigarettes once I got home. Spent $100 on shellac every inch inside and outside, 3 coats. Everything was great. I was like, oh my God, I got rid of the smell. 2 months later, I opened the drawer and that drawer was smelling like cigarette smoke. So you never gonna get rid of that smell. Some people don't mind that. Majority of people do mind the cigarettes smell because it's disgusting. And it goes the same for mold. If I notice that pieces are smelling moldy inside, I don't get that. Once I bought piece that smelled like mold, couldn't get rid of the mold smell. I tried everything that is there to try. I just couldn't get rid of it, and I think I ended up donating that piece. Pretty sure I just got rid of it like that, with no money, with no profit. So those are the things that now there's no way on earth I'm going to buy a piece that smells like smoke. I don't care how beautiful it is. Personally, I just gonna stay away from that. So again, as I said, some people say you can get rid of the smell this way or that way. I don't think so. I tried everything. I cannot. Some people was like, oh no, it doesn't smell. I'm like, yep, it does smell like smoke inside. I wouldn't put my belongings in that. Why would you try to sell that? So that is very important things to try to avoid. If you are the beginner, you're just going to go through hell. You're going to be frustrated. And it's the same with broken furniture, unless, as I said, unless you have somebody at home who can fix that for you, a woodworker. If you're a person, if you have a person that is handy, that's great. But if you don't have, just don't waste your time and money like I did. And I don't know how much, when it was time for me to move and I had to get rid of all that broken furniture that was sitting in my area for 2 years, I donated so much furniture. There was like hundreds of dollars I donated, and I realized that was just like, I threw money away. So that is number nine. Number eight. Number eight is important because again, everything that I'm saying today, this is all the mistakes that I was doing when I was a beginner. Painting over wax, over furniture wax. Horrible thing to do. There is only one brand that I know that you can do. I can say with confidence because I've done it so many times and it worked perfectly. It's Annie Sloan. You can paint over Annie Sloan wax using Annie Sloan paint. That's the only case. Any other case, it's a nightmare. Paint won't stick, it will crack, it will create all kind of problems. So don't even try to do that. If your piece is waxed, the best thing to do is to remove everything with mineral spirits and then wash it with water. That way you know you got rid of all that wax and you know your paint is going to stick to the surface. It won't crack, it's gonna stay there. Even if you're painting over wax, your paint goes nice and smooth, you wait a few months, it might start peeling off easily or bad. That's a big no. But again, as I said, if you are using Annie Sloan paint and Annie Sloan wax, you can do it. It's fine. That's the only case. But you can use different kind of chalk paint over Annie Sloan wax. No. And you can't use Annie Sloan paint over some different kind of clear wax. No. That's a big no. And try to avoid that. You will create yourself so many problems. You are going to regret. And why? It's much easier if you just it takes probably half an hour, get a towel, remove everything with mineral spirits, and then wash it, and you're good to go. Or you can even sand it. It depends what you prefer, but I do prefer mineral spirits. And once I wash everything, I know I can apply paint and everything is going to be all right, because sometimes you just have to repaint the piece. A piece doesn't sell, you want to change the look if it's your own piece, and if you're like me, then you want to change look of your furniture all the time. I'm actually getting kind of better at that, but before I used to, like every few months, I will want to change color on my furniture, so sometimes I didn't even wax it. That's only for my personal use. Okay, this one is very important because this is all my own experience, guys. This is all my experience, my worst mistakes that made me go through so much frustration, and I don't want you to go through that. There is no need. Not letting your piece dry before you paint it. What I mean by that is once you wash your piece, and we will get to that thing too, but I suggest you wash your pieces. I don't suggest you spray your pieces. I suggest you wash your piece with a cloth and a bucket of water and wash it, wash until that water is clean. So once you do that, the best thing to do is to leave your piece to dry overnight. Once I was impatient and I didn't want to do that, so I started to paint and my paint cracked. It was summer, it was 80 degrees, humidity was huge, my piece was not drying. It was maybe I waited maybe an hour, I apply my first coat of paint and everything cracked. And yes, I had to sand everything off and prime it. I know I went through hell to fix that piece. It was a lot of work to fix all those crackings. So that's why since that day, I just wash my pieces the day before I'm going to paint. If I'm going to paint on Monday, then on Sunday, no matter what, I make sure, sometimes I go at night and I wash that piece, and that way I have all night to dry, and the next day I come, my piece is dry and ready to go. So you don't have to deal with that, because in hot places, that's especially I advise that. In the south, where it's hot, where the temperatures are high, humidity is high, that is so important, not trapping that humidity under your paint, because it's going to crack somewhere. It has to go somewhere. It's not gonna stay there. So cannot tell you how frustrated I was when my piece cracked, and I was like, oh my God. And I knew something was telling me, like, you know, don't rush it, just paint tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I have to paint today, because if I wanna paint today, I wanna paint today. Made huge mistake. It took me a week to fix all the problems, because you remember, if the piece has a lot of curvings and you paint over that, and that will crack too, so you have to sand all that by hand. It was interesting week to say. So yeah, try to avoid that. So number 6 is not letting paint dry before applying the second coat or third coat or any coat. So when you put one coat or second coat, it doesn't matter if there is going to be another coat followed by that, you have to let that coat dry. It's so important to do that. If you don't do that, again, all kind of things are going to happen. Your paint is going to crack. You're going to lift paint as you go. You're going to have all kind of problems. Again, because it's wet and you're just trapping that wetness there. So let your coat dry completely and then come later, usually 2 hours. Again, it depends where you are. Back when I used to live in Colorado, my paint will be dry in 15 minutes, which is amazing, but Colorado is so high, it's a mountain and it's so dry, so everything dries so fast. Where when you're at the sea level, that's changed. Like, you are close to the sea, humidity is high. We live in Maine, and Maine it can be cold, but the humidity is high here. So I have to completely learn how to paint in these conditions when I moved here, and I moved in the summer, so the humidity was so high. So letting that first coat is so important, and that's why I say don't put thick coats. That's why I suggest to go with thin coats over thick coats. A lot of brands, a lot of paint suggest, oh, you get coverage in one coat, and then people put such a thick coats, and then they realize, oh, this is not covered, I need another coat. Of course you need another coat. There's no paint I tried so many that will cover in one coat. There is no way. Nothing is going to cover in one coat, even if you put this thick coat. So don't try to do that. Just go with a thin coat. The thinner you apply, the faster it's going to dry, so you can continue. I would rather do that than put a thick coat of paint, and then that takes forever to dry. Again, you need so much patience for that. So when you go over wet paint, if your paint is still wet in some areas, wherever is wet, you're going to lift that with your brush, and then some areas you are going to create some kind of buildups that you don't see, and then when everything gets dry, it's going to crack. So don't do that. This one, so important. Wash your furniture not washing your furniture. Number 5, mistake. Huge mistake. Humongous mistake. I can't explain how big of mistake is this. I always say, and I can't say enough, if you grab a bottle of cleaner, sprayer, deglosser, whatever is that cleaner in a spray, and you spray a piece of furniture and then you wipe that, yeah, you're gonna get some dirt off the piece. But if you do that and you think you're ready to paint your piece, before you paint your piece, get a bucket of water and get a a towel, and wash your piece. You will be surprised how much dirt is going to come out of that piece that you thought it was clean and it was ready to be painted. And what you will be doing, you will be attaching, you will be putting paint on top of that dirt that is between paint and your piece. And then people will be like, oh, adhesion is bad. You have to prime. Well, you know what? With chalk paint, you don't have to prime, because chalk paint is designed to stick to every surface. But if you have that dirt and that oil and that years of buildup of who knows what between your paint and your piece, no, your paint is not going to stick. So 80% of furniture does not need primer. Like there is some cases, some silky pieces that need primer. There is some pieces when you have to prime because it's mahogany or it's redwood or we're gonna talk about that too. But you need to wash your piece. You just have to wash your piece, and then your adhesion is going to be so good. Like, it's going to be much better. So just wash your piece with a bucket of water, not spray and towel. That's not going to work. Believe me. It's just, as I said, if you don't believe me, clean your piece with a sprayer and a towel, and then get a bucket of water and wash it, and you will see what will come out. Washing your piece inside, you have to pull the drawers, wash inside. I will be so embarrassed if, like, customer was picking up a piece, and let's say they pick up the piece and then they decide to take the drawers off to place it in their home, and then they remove the drawers and they see the dust under the drawers. Like, I will be so embarrassed of myself to sell a piece like that. That's a bad reputation, in my opinion, and that's not reputation I want. I live in Maine, where there's not so many people here, and I have a lot of repeat customers. I can tell you that. Like, half of my pieces are being bought by repeat customers. They're coming back, maybe more. Like, if I think about that, so. Reputation is important, and having a clean piece under, behind, inside, it's very important. I will never sell a piece that is not cleaned through everywhere. As I said, behind, under. So also, that it's not only about reputation. That's one part of it. The other part is your paint is simply not going to stick very well. And I have no problem with chalk paint sticking to everything. When you get in there and you clean all that, you're good to go. That's why chalk paint is amazing. Oh, this one is so important, and I made this mistake so many times when I was a beginner. That is not having 3 separate brushes. You need a brush for paint, you need a brush for wax, and you need a brush for polyurethane or any top coat. You need those 3 brushes. So you have to have that. Using a wax brush, let's say using a chalk brush or bristle brush to wax your piece, that brush can never be cleaned again. That's it. Once you use a wax on a brush, that is wax brush forever. You will never get rid of that. You can wash it with mineral spirits, which I do. You can wash it with warm water, but it will never be clean that you can paint with it. And then a mistake I made is like I will paint with a brush, and then I will, let's say I paint white. I will paint white piece and I will wash my brush, and it's time to put top coat. And I will grab the same brush that I used white on, that I use for white paint, and then as I'm putting, and the worst thing is like if you use that brush on a piece that you stained. Let's say you stained the top and you're going to use the same brush that you use for chalk painting, you're going to use to put on top of stain to put protection. And as you go, you see you're leaving all those little dots of chalk paint that didn't come off from a brush when you were washing, and you didn't even see that, but it's all on your perfectly stained top. That is a big mistake. Like, that is a big mistake. Always, always, always have 3 brushes. One for chalk paint or paint, it doesn't have to be chalk paint. One for paint, one for wax, one for polyurethane. I always have separated brushes for top coats, and then I have separated brushes for wax. And I even separate brushes for wax, clear wax and brown wax and black wax. You don't have to go that far, and brushes can get expensive, but clear wax, you need to have one brush for that, one for painting and one for, because you don't want to cross these brushes and mix them up. It's just not going to be good. And if you use a wax brush on chalk paint, I think that it's just not a good idea. It sounds bad. I never tried doing that, but I assume it will not go good because wax has those build-up. So I don't suggest you do that. As I said, have separate brushes and you're going to avoid a lot of little mistakes and frustration. We're coming to number 3, which I started talking about it a little bit earlier, and that is not priming red and dark wood. And I feel like a lot of people are confused by that. They don't know when they need to wax. They don't know when they need to prime. Sometimes they see me prime, sometimes they don't see me prime. They're like, sometimes you prime, you don't. What's the deal? The deal is that you have to learn about wood. If you are going to do this as a hobby, as a business, it doesn't matter. Try to learn about wood as much as you can. It's very important to learn redwood. Mahogany is redwood. I put that in the redwood, and cherry wood. And there will be redwood that is a bleeder. That will bleed no matter what. Like, don't even take chances. Prime redwood. Just prime it. And don't take your chances. That's the best thing to do. You can, if I see a mahogany, I know that's a priming. If I see cherry wood, I know I'm priming that. If I see redwood, I prime. Sometimes I will buy pieces that look like cherry, like they look red. I remember I bought one antique desk, and it looked red, like redwood. And I open the door and I look inside, and I look on the side and inside, and I realized they used red stain. It wasn't real. It was, I think it was maple, but they used red stain. So sometimes they will confuse you, but just educate yourself. Try to learn what is redwood, what's mahogany, what's cherry. If you see that, prime it, because that is going to bleed 100%. If not immediately, it's going to bleed in a month, 2, sometimes 6 months it takes, but it's going to bleed. And again, you don't want that reputation. Reputation is important. You don't want selling a piece and that piece is bleeding 6 months later. You know, that person is never going to come back to buy more. And for yourself, if you're doing for yourself, you know, you don't want to do all that hard work, and why to go through so much trouble of trying to fixing it when you can just avoid that altogether if you prime your piece. And again, some things have to be primed as well, because if they have odor, and I'm not talking about smoking odor, I'm talking about like old things, you know. Sometimes some pieces have certain smell, and the best way to get rid of that is to prime. If piece is nasty, dirty, it has oil stain, just use some shellac based primer, and you are going to save yourself so much trouble. So if you're doubting, if you don't know if you're supposed to, if you have a piece and you're like, I don't know, what shall I do? Shall I prime it? I think it's red wood, but I'm not sure. Or I don't know if the chalk paint is going to stick to this piece. It looks very silky. What do I do? Just prime it. If you don't know what to do, just prime it. It's so simple. It's better to prime it than take your chances and you don't prime it and then you go through hell. So that's why, you know, that you will learn as you go. You will learn a lot of things, so you will know when you need to prime and when you don't need to prime. You're just gonna learn that. So sometimes I get pieces that needs to be primed. Sometimes I get pieces that, usually I get pieces that don't have to be primed. So that is really a big rookie mistake, bleeding through. A lot of people get that, and don't be scared. If you have that, just, if you're painting a piece and you are having a bleeding, just stop where you are, spray shellac, 2-3 coats of shellac, and continue, carry on, you will be just fine. There is no need to panic, everything is fixable. But it's easier said than done, because I've been there and I know how it is to panic. Number two. So majority of people that are in this industry, we use water-based paint. I don't want to use oil-based paint. I don't want to even see it. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to be around it. Water-based is the best innovation, the best thing that ever came up with. It's not toxic. It doesn't smell. You can use indoor. It's easy to clean. It just has so many beauties of it. And a lot of people forget that you can use water when you're using water-based paint. Some chalk paints on the market are very thick, and people don't realize that just spraying some little bit of water, it's going to make a whole different look how your piece looks at the end. A lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I have brush strokes and I don't know what to do. Well, if you are using very thick paint, very thick chalk paint, because there is, as I spoke about this so many times, there is a texturized paint and there is self-leveling paint, chalk paint. The one that is texturized is going to need to be sprayed with water to give you that nice and smooth finish, and you're going to get rid of brush strokes. If your chalk paint is in a can and it's too thick, just pour some water in it and mix it up. It's going to become so smoother and nicer, and it's going to help you so much. So just spray some water as you paint or pour some water in the can. I have some cans of paint that I had for years, and I will open and they will be like so thick, and at the bottom and at the end, and I will just pour water in it, and I will mix, and I get a perfect consistency of that paint. So water is so important. Have a spray bottle next to you as you paint. That's like my best friend. Like, I can't imagine going into a project without spray bottle. It can be a mist bottle. Mist bottle is just going to give you that nice mist. You don't have to spend $10. I don't know how much those mist bottle cost, 10, 15, 20. Sometimes I see them for $20. I'm like, really? It's a plastic bottle. You can just get the one that are $1 or $2 regular plastic bottle for cleaning home. I've used that for years, and I was fine with that. Spray some, and it's going to be a huge difference in your work. It's going to be a huge difference. Just try it. It's good for blending, for smooth finish. The only time you don't want to use any water is when you dry brush, because it's dry brush, it says. But in so many cases, yes, you want to use water. Water is great. Water is like so important in this industry. And sometimes I even tried, before I'm going to stain, I will spray some water on my raw wood and I will stain on top of it. And that will help open up the pores on wood. And water is so important. So just don't be afraid to use water. As I said, spray a little bit and then see how it feels. But it's going to feel much better. And this one is so important, and that is too much paint on your brush. Don't dip your brush all the way in the paint. If I have so many people come to me and they ask me, and it's the biggest problem, 80%, maybe 90% of the time, it's my piece has brush strokes. It doesn't look good. And I'm like, did you use water? Yes, I did. Some people say, no, I didn't. You know, the first thing I ask them, did you spray some water? Some people say yes. And some people say no. And the people who say yes, my next question is, how much you dip in your brush? Like, you're supposed to dip your brush this much. Just a tip. And then go. Take it easy. Take your time. It's all connected to each other. All this that I'm talking about is so connected to everything. Everything starts with what furniture you buy, to how it smells, to is the bleeder, to how much you clean it, to how much you let it dry in between coats. And this one is so, if people only knew how big this is a game changer, they will stop dipping their brushes all the way in. You just need a little bit on your tip and you paint with that. And when you feel like that's it, there is no more paint on your brush, you go back. Some people are trying to speed up the process, so they feel like if they dip a whole brush in paint, they will have longer. They have to dip less. Yes, you have to dip less, but your piece is going to have brush strokes. And mine is not, because I am taking my time dipping into paint so many times, just this much, and then going back over and applying thin coats, and I have no brush strokes. I have to tell you, I was here when looking at the piece. I used Annie Sloan, and I painted in every which direction, and I use a natural bristle brush. And you know, when you paint in every which direction with natural bristle brush, you have all kind of texture. And I'm looking this and I'm like, there is no texture. It's like, because I spread that paint and I use thin coats and I spray water, I get smooth finish with every paint. Waverly, a lot of people complain about that, it's very thick. and it's hard to get smooth finish. Well, my Waverly is perfectly smooth, like it's self-leveling. You will level that paint. If your paint is not self-leveling, you're going to self-level. But even if you have self-leveling paint and you dip your brush too deep into it, oh boy, you are going to have brush strokes no matter what. So I know a lot of people, a lot of times, you know, you think it's the product, but it's not really the product, it's you. And I have to tell you that. You just, you know, sometimes you think, oh my God, this paint is not good, or this brush is bad, or this is bad. But sometimes we don't use those, we don't use things how we're supposed to. So, so as I said, all these mistakes are so connected to each other, and every mistake you make is essential for a next step. So if you just try to take my advice on these 10 things, you are going to save yourself so much headaches, frustration that I went through. And as I said, when I started this, there was not content as this, and I had to learn everything the hard way. And there was time when I wasn't happy. Like I was like, oh my God, this is way too hard. So, you know, I just want to help you. You don't have to go through these not fun times. But as I said, all these things are connected to each other, and every step is so important for you to have a good finished product. A product that you can be proud of, a product that you can stand in front of, a product that you can be confident to sell. You know, it's all connected to each other. Everything is so important. And if you skip some steps, it will catch up with you later, if it doesn't catch up with you sooner. You know, if problem doesn't appear immediately at that day, it will appear later if you try skipping or not doing some of those things that I put on this list. So just wash your pieces, use some water, avoid broken and bad smelly furniture, avoid repainting somebody else's work. Just strip it. If you have to paint over that piece, just strip it. Don't paint over wax unless it's on its loan. What we have, clean your piece the day before you're going to paint. Let your coats dry in between. Don't rush the process. Prime your red wood. Prime your pieces. If you're doubting, yes, no, always yes. If you have the doubt, just go with yes. And use water, spray water, and don't dip brush into your paint so deep. You are going to see the difference. Thank you guys for listening, and I really hope you found this helpful. If you did, let me know, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.